Fire Emblem Fates, a game that had a lot of potential to become the best in the entire franchise. So what did it do right and what did it do wrong? Well, let's look deeper into that, shall we? Fire Emblem Fates tells the story of our protagonist of the week and custom avatar, Corrin. He has to make a very heartbreaking decision to fight for one of two kingdoms, both of which he is relative to. Hoshido, where he is born, but Nor, from where he was raised as a child. You get familiar with both families of Hoshido and Nor before you have to make this heart-wrenching decision. Do you go with blood or with bond? I like the concept that Intelligent Systems went with when making Fates, in which whatever your decision is will make consequences for your actions. No matter who you choose and who you go with, you will always regret your decision at the end of the game. Fire Emblem Fates' gameplay is where the game truly stands out in terms of mechanics and overall execution. When you consider everything that has been introduced as well as brought back from other famous Fire Emblem games, Fates has to be the best game in the series when it comes to gameplay. Now, I'm not going to go into the gameplay specifically, as that's for a review for another day, but I'll just say that the gameplay in Fates is one of the best in Fire Emblem. The next thing that needs to be praised is the characters. Fates' roster is one of the best I've seen in a Fire Emblem game, and it is very close to Awakening's roster. My favorites from Hoshido include Ryoma, Takumi, and Kagero, and from Nor, my favorites are Xander, Camilla, and Effie. Now, I'm not exactly saying that every single character is very well written, but a good majority of them are, especially Xander and Takumi, when their actions are dependent on which path you choose. I guess now I can talk about the art style, in which I gotta say, it is top notch and pushing the 3DS to its limit. Honestly, I don't know if Fire Emblem has looked this good. The cutscenes definitely stand out in 3DS standards, especially when compared to Awakening. The in-game gameplay also looks great as well, can't forget to mention that. Just look at that, it looks great. The character designs are also great as well. I'll admit some character designs do look over the top, like Arthur. Even characters who are portrayed as fan service, and I especially hate how Camilla is portrayed, as she is actually a really complex character, rather than just being a sex appeal. Charlotte is even worse than Camilla. I mean, look at her! This is very unsettling. So the characters definitely get by quite nicely, but what about the story? Well, not so much. While I do appreciate the concept of two kingdoms at war and you have to choose one, I feel like that'd have to be something on one single game, like have all three paths on one game rather than being separate. But I also don't like how the protagonist Corrin is such as bland as you can possibly get. I get that Corrin is meant to be the optimist and saying that morality is definitely something as well as mercy, but for the entirety of the game, he never changes. He just stays the same bland character throughout all three paths. I also don't like for the fact that there are gaping plot holes in all three pathways and that I have to ask myself questions to get the answers to those plot holes. The villains also don't help out the story either, as Garen is just the one-dimensional asshole, and Anankos is brought in really late to the story that he doesn't get that much development or backstory on him. The story is definitely a jumbled mess, and I hope that Intelligent Systems fixes this with Fire Emblem Echoes. To summarize it all up, Fire Emblem Fates had the potential to be one of the best Fire Emblem games in the franchise, and while it did exceed expectations in the gameplay mechanics, the story just wasn't good enough to make it one of the best in the franchise. I still feel like it's behind Blazing Sword and Awakening for best Fire Emblem game. And that'll do it for my first episode of my 5-minute analysis series. Stay tuned for episode number 2. As for me, I give Fire Emblem Fates an 8 out of 10. Great presentation, gameplay, and characters, but lacking in a story. Thanks for watching.